So I wanted to preface this video by saying Lamar Jackson isn't going anywhere. I don't think the Baltimore Ravens are just going to get up and trade Lamar Jackson in the middle of the season because that will completely ruin their plans for the upcoming season. I don't think this is a scenario where Lamar Jackson's going to play out this entire year and then leave in free agency. Nevertheless, this was still the worst case scenario for the Baltimore Ravens, and it could actually cripple their chances in the future to contend for a Super Bowl. So before we get to all of that, man, we're doing cash giveaways on my Twitter account. All you have to do is follow and turn my notifications on and retweet the tweet in front of you. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! This video is sponsored by DraftKings. Calling all 2022 college sports fans, the NCAA season has already launched, and there are plenty of ways to cash in this football season. As teams begin their hunt for glory, DraftKings Sportsbook, which is America's top-rated sportsbook app, is putting new customers at the center of the action with an opportunity to turn $5 into $200 worth of free bets. That's right, DraftKings is giving all new customers $200 in free bets when they place any pre-game $5 or more wager on the college football team of their choosing. Plus, with same-game parlays, you can combine multiple bets from the same game to give yourself a shot at even bigger winnings all season long. DraftKings has been around for a while, so you know your funds are safe and can be withdrawn whenever, wherever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use my promo code Mikerophone to turn $5 into $200 worth of free bets. That's promo code Mikerophone and receive $200 worth of free bets whenever you place a $5 wager. And thank you, DraftKings, for the sponsorship. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? A week ago, we made a video on the Lamar Jackson contract situation, and we discussed in this video how Russell Wilson's brand new contract kind of screwed over Lamar Jackson and what he wanted. Clearly, in tweets that we showed in that video, Lamar Jackson wants one thing and one thing only, and it's one thing that only was offered to another quarterback. He wants a fully guaranteed contract extension, which I can't necessarily blame him. Deshaun Watson's contract is one of the most incredible contracts that I've ever seen. I mean, incredible in the sense that it's actually bizarre. The man is getting paid $230 million, fully guaranteed. He's suspended for the first 11 games this season, and he's still getting paid that salary to be a member of the Cleveland Browns. And since then, we were wondering whether or not this was the new meta. Is this going to be something that we can expect in the future from other superstar quarterbacks? And very shortly after, we got our answer to that question. No. Aaron Rodgers' contract is pretty freaking incredible as well, where he's getting paid a 3-year, $150 million contract extension, $40 million due at signing, and $101 million guaranteed. Still absolutely incredible, but only his first 2 seasons are fully guaranteed, which is still a ton of money for 2 seasons, but it's not a fully guaranteed deal. And then, of course, following that contract was another person that is in a very similar situation as Lamar Jackson, and that's Kyler Murray, getting his first big contract extension of his career. He also got a $230 million contract extension, but only $160 million of that was guaranteed. And then the icing on the cake was when Russell Wilson got his contract extension. Bear in mind, Russell Wilson's in a significantly different situation. He's won Super Bowls before. He's had multiple contract extensions throughout his career. And in this case, Russell Wilson got a 5-year, $245 million contract extension. That includes $165 million guaranteed, which means any hope that Lamar Jackson had of getting a fully guaranteed contract went completely out of the window. And that was the reason why the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson were having so much difficulty difficulty agreeing to a contract extension. And again, man, in my last video, I saw a lot of comments saying that the Cleveland Browns made a huge mistake giving Deshaun Watson that amount of money. But when you go back to it, all the way back when Deshaun Watson first was seeking out a trade, originally he told the Cleveland Browns he wasn't interested. The Browns had no leverage whatsoever. And the only way they were able to convince Watson to come over to their team and get a significant upgrade at the quarterback position, although obviously it comes with things on the side, especially considering Deshaun Watson's allegations and whatnot, the only way to potentially get that gigantic upgrade was for them to offer Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract. And that's just a very fancy way of saying the Cleveland Browns were desperate for a QB upgrade because, well, Deshaun Watson, at least on paper, would easily be their best quarterback and most talented quarterback that they've ever had on the Cleveland Browns ever since the Cleveland Browns came back to the NFL in the late 1990s. Now, was it a good decision? Well, we're not going to know until Deshaun Watson takes the field, but it was a very complicated and a special case where Deshaun Watson clearly had a significant amount of leverage over the Cleveland Browns. And ultimately, this is where things get unfortunate for the Baltimore Ravens, because originally Lamar Jackson gave himself a deadline to Friday to figure out a contract extension with the Baltimore Ravens. Well, on Friday, officially, Lamar Jackson turned down the Ravens' latest offer and decided to bet on himself. He now will make $23 million this season and is expected to be franchise tagged after this season. This is really unfortunate for the Baltimore Ravens, and we'll get to why in just a second. Here's what the Baltimore Ravens general manager had to say about it. Despite best efforts on both sides, we were unable to reach a contract extension with Lamar Jackson. We greatly appreciate how he has handled this process, and we are excited about our team with Lamar leading the way. We will continue to work towards a long-term contract after the season, but for now, we are looking forward to a successful 2022 campaign. Now, I don't know if this is a situation where Lamar Jackson wasn't getting offered a significant amount of money because he didn't have the greatest season last year, or if it's a situation where Lamar Jackson clearly wanted guaranteed money, but the Baltimore Ravens were not willing to give it to him. So the question is, what's next for Lamar Jackson? Well, Jamison Hensley of ESPN wrote this article saying, what is next for Lamar Jackson? So it says, will Lamar Jackson get the franchise tag next year? This is where the Ravens and Jackson are headed, unless they can find a compromise, although the two sides have been working on that for the last 20 months without an agreement. March 7th is the deadline for teams to use the franchise tag. If the sides can't reach a deal by then, the Ravens would have to use the franchise tag on a quarterback for the first time in the franchise's 27-year history to keep Jackson from becoming an unrestricted free agent, which means Lamar Jackson would make $45 million in 2023 if he plays under the exclusive franchise tag. This is rare territory for franchise quarterbacks. In the previous 10 seasons, only two have been given the tag: Kirk Cousins in 2016 and 2017, who was with Washington at the time, and Dak Prescott in 2020 and 2021. Prescott eventually signed a long-term extension with the Cowboys, while Kirk Cousins hit the free agent market and signed a landmark deal with the Minnesota Vikings. History suggests that Baltimore has time to avoid placing the tag on Jackson. A decade ago, quarterback Joe Flacco declined the Ravens' offer on a contract extension, entering his 5th year just like Jackson. After Flacco led the Ravens to a Super Bowl win, the team signed him to a record-setting deal 25 days later and 3 days before the tag deadline. If the Ravens are unable to reach an agreement with Jackson by March, they know they have contractual control over Jackson for the next 2 seasons with the tag. Jackson acknowledged that it was a pretty big risk last season as well, and that anything can happen. God forbid the wrong thing happens, he said. But in 2020, Dak Prescott suffered a significant ankle injury while playing under the franchise tag and missed the final 11 games of the season, and the Cowboys still gave him a 4-year, $160 million contract the next offseason. The biggest concern is Lamar Jackson's style of play, which includes breaking long runs and eluding pass rushers. Robert Griffin III, who also was a dual-threat quarterback, was never the same after he injured his right knee at the end of his rookie season in 2012. Lamar Jackson has been durable during his first 4 seasons despite taking an NFL-high 737 hits. The only time Jackson missed any games due to injury was at the end of last season, when he was sidelined the last 4 games with a bruised right ankle after dropping back and throwing a pass. The monetary gamble is this: 5 quarterbacks have signed for at least $150 $150 million in guaranteed money since Jackson was eligible for an extension. Jackson is guaranteed $23 million this season under his 5th-year option. And this is where the Baltimore Ravens screw themselves over, okay? Waiting has been a profitable strategy so far for Jackson. Since he became eligible for an extension last year, 5 quarterbacks have signed deals that have exceeded $150 million in guaranteed money. And the top average per year for quarterbacks has jumped from $45 million, which is Patrick Mahomes, to $50 million. And this is where the Baltimore Ravens screwed themselves over, because the players that are up next for contract extensions are players that are without a doubt going to get significant contract extensions, one being Joe Burrow and the other being Justin Herbert. And if the precedent is to consistently beat the existing top quarterback salary, or at least get into the top 3, all the Ravens are doing at this point are setting themselves up to pay Lamar Jackson even more money next offseason. I mean, you could keep kicking the can down the road. You could franchise tag him for a year, and then you could franchise tag him for another year. All you're going to end up doing is needing to pay Lamar Jackson more and more money. Currently, if Lamar Jackson was to sign a contract extension, he would probably get something, very similar to what Kyler Murray and what Russell Wilson received. But since they weren't able to agree on such a contract, chances are in the future, you're going to have to pay Lamar Jackson something around $50 million, which is what Aaron Rodgers is currently receiving, because my guess is you're going to see Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert sign similar contracts to that. And that's before the season even starts. I mean, imagine if the Chargers make a deep playoff run or make it to the Super Bowl. Imagine if the Bengals return to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl. That's going to make Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert get paid even more. And then the Baltimore Ravens are going to need to beat that contract. So I don't necessarily know why the Baltimore Ravens are deciding to take this route. Maybe they think if they could franchise tag Lamar Jackson over the next 2 seasons, maybe he's going to sustain a significant injury or something like that. Maybe they're questioning whether or not his play style is sustainable. After all, we've seen quarterbacks that have a similar style of play fizzle out at the ages of like 29 or 28 or 30. Most recently, I'm thinking of Cam Newton, who sustained a shoulder injury, and I guess you could blame that on his style of play. But Lamar Jackson is just 25 years old, so I don't necessarily see that type of regression happening yet. So ultimately, if the Ravens want to ride with Lamar Jackson for the future, they should have paid him yesterday. But unfortunately, they're just going to kick the can down the road. They're going to invest significantly more capital, which means the rest of their team's going to be a little bit weaker, and that's all because they decided not to pay Lamar Jackson. So let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Ravens fan. How do you feel about this situation? How much do you think Lamar Jackson should be paid? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.